Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me again. So we're in a new year and we're doing new craft, and soon we're going to have an important day on the Scottish calendar, which is Burns Day. But you can do this craft for anything where you think you need something of a national nature. So one of the unmistakable emblems of Scotland is the Scottish Highland Terrier. And I thought today we'd make a change from working with paper and glue. We're going to work with fabric. We're going to make ourselves a nice wee brooch to wear whenever we want to tell people something special about Scotland. So you can do this with anything. If you've got a bit of felt and you've got an idea, you can do this. So what are we going to need to make our wee Scotty dog today? Well, we are going to need, first of all, some felt, because it doesn't fray and it's nice to work with. We're going to need a template. Now, I drew this one just in a hurry. What I did was, if you watch me, you've got access to the internet, you can do it as well. I went to look for Scotty dogs, and there are many available online. So you can choose one you like, and you can copy it down, you can draw it. You need your pencil, you need a bit of paper. If you're lucky enough to have a printer, you can print off the picture you like, size it to the size you want, and then just make a rough trace of the outline, like I've done here, and use that as your template. You're going to need some pins, because you have to pin your template to your fabric. I've got some sew on googly eyes, but if you've got some thread and a needle, which you're also going to need, you can embroider eyes. So I've got my thread, I've got my felt, got my template. All I need is a pair of scissors. And what you'll do is very carefully, having pinned this onto your fabric, just cut all along the outline until you've freed your wee shape. You're going to need to do two shapes. You want two shapes. You're going to need to start with two. And they will be mirror images of each other, because they're going to be sewn together. Yeah? You're going to sew them together so that you can make your wee shape that we're going to see. It's got a bit of stuffing in it. So you're going to need some stuffing, and you're also going to need a brooch pin or a safety pin to just pin it on, and if you want to be fancy, a little bit of tartan ribbon to tie a ribbon around your doggy's neck. So let us start. So first of all, I have already cut out my templates, so we'll put this to a side. Then the next thing we have to do, deciding which way our dog is going to face, we have to sew a safety pin on for the back, or your brooch pin fitting. And then you have to be really careful, because you have to sew the eye on the other side. If you had your two bits of fabric like this, and your safety pin went here, when you put your pieces together, it'll be on the inside and no use. So you must make sure that you sew your safety pin on the one side and your eye on the other side. So once you've done that, you'll have to pause this video to get so far. Once you've done that, now we have to sew the two halves together. And I would recommend, because it's just easier this way, if you make a knot in your thread and you start from the tail, work your way around, all the way around the outside, all the way around here, around the wee face, and just over the hump of the ears. So from here to about there, leave a gap here. If you've done that, then you are ready to stuff your wee brooch. So I have done that already. I have sewn my pin on the back, my eye on the front. Of course, if you want your dog to be this way around, you'll put the pin on this side and you'll put the eye on that side. The choice is yours. You can do what you want. And then I have left a gap up here. Now, unfortunately, I didn't think this through and I've done it all in black. But see, just from behind the ear, all the way to just here where the tail stops. I've got a little pocket here. And you don't need much stuffing. Now, you can recycle anything to use as stuffing. If you have some wool lying around somewhere, you can use that, especially if it's that soupy color that you don't like. Or you can use old socks that have holes in them, snip them up into small bits, and you can use them for stuffing. So we start with a little bit of stuffing, and I think I will go towards the head first. Now your fingers are never going to work, so I use my scissors. Don't cut with them, just use them in a closed manner, and I'm going to poke some of this stuffing into the head of my, don't do too much because you might split your seam, and we'll talk a bit more about the seams when I come to sew the doggy up. You don't have to be very fancy with your seams. I used what they call a whip stitch to sew the front and the back of my doggy together. But if you know it and you're up for the challenge, you can use something like a blanket stitch. So now I'm just poking some more stuffing into the leg of my wee doggy, and you just poke until it's just a nice thickness. You don't have to make it too thick, you don't have to poke too much in, don't overstuff it. As I say, it's a very small bit of stuffing you're going to need to put in here. So, put some in the back leg there. And use small little bits. If you put a big wodge in, it goes all horrible and lumpy. But if you use small bits, you can fit them into the gaps where they need to know. Now, doing the tail is a bit tricky because it goes up the way, but if I use my scissors just very gently, and as I say, don't push too hard because you don't want the seam to split on you, because that will just be too horrible. Right, I've got some in the legs, I've got some in the tail. Maybe I can do a little bit more in the tail here. It slipped out a bitty. I've got some in the ears. Let's put some in the body. It's okay to use your fingers for the body because the hole is big enough. Let's see, another little bit. And we just poke, poke, poke. That's why I spoke so quickly about the beginning of this thing, because that takes a wee while to get to the point where you're going to stuff it. But because I want to show you the sewing of it, I will just do up to this point really quickly. So, and try and put a little bit in the neck. You don't want the neck too floppy. It's easy to forget the neck because it's quite a shallow little space just there. And when you think you've got enough in there to be getting on with, just a wee smidgen more, not a lot. You don't want a fat doggy, you just want it just a little bit. Now, because you've already got your pin on and because you've already got your eye on, there is a chance that your thread might catch on those things. So when you're sewing, take care. So now I've got my thread and I'm just going to cut a little bit off. You can use any thread, but this is an anchor embroidery or a crochet thread. It's a little bit thicker than normal thread, and it's really nice to use on felt because it's just the right proportion. So I'm going to make a knot. I wrap my thread around my needle a few times. I pinch it between my fingers. I pull the needle through the wrap and it makes a knot. That should be enough. Or you can just make a normal knot like you do, and then I think 2 knots, one over the other, will give you enough. So when we sew our little dog together, we start by putting our thread inside. Do you know what? I need my glasses for this bit. Bear with me. There we go. We put our needle inside our doggy and we come out right near the edge. So my thread and my knot is now inside the body of my doggy. And I pinch the 2 sides together closely. Any bits of fluff that sticks out, I can poke it back in with my needle, and I go in through the opposite side and out. So it just makes a little whip stitch. In one side, out the other side. Manipulate your stuffing as you go so it will sit in the right place, and in and out, and over the top and through and out, and over the top and through and out. Now you will do this style of sewing when you first go around the outside of your little doggy's body. So, and as I say, just push the stuffing back where it should be to stay on the inside of your doggy. Or any shape you want to do, because I was thinking, if we're going to celebrate Burns's night, he did not write a poem about a doggy. He did write a poem about a mouse though. So, instead of drawing your template in a doggy shape, you can draw it in a mousey shape. Or any animal you really like, because the principle is the same. You cut 2 pieces identical, you sew around most of the outside, you make sure that you have the fastener sewn on and any features like the eye. If you want to make a lion, you can put a mane on. If you want to do a zebra, you can sew stripes on. But do those kind of things before you sew the 2 halves together. Otherwise, it'll just be difficult. See how quickly it goes? I'm nearly there. Don't put your needle through too close to the edge of your fabric. It might tear out. Give yourself a millimeter or 2 or 1/8 of an inch if you're in metric. Now when you get to the end, make 1 or 2 stitches in the same place. Exactly in the same place as where you've made your last stitch. So they all sit one on top of the other. And here's the magic trick. Then you take your needle, you pop it in where that stitch came out, and you shove it out somewhere else. And you pull your thread into the body of your doggy, and then you cut it off. Just like that. And there's our doggy complete with the pin on the back. Now, maybe we want to put a ribbon on. I forgot my ribbon. Didn't think I would film here, but I've got some of this lovely red wool. So why don't we give him a little bow of red wool? Just tie it around the neck as you would tie a bow on anything. Little loops, just like this. 1, 2, 3. Make a nice little bow. Cut off the long ends. And our doggy is finished. As I say, you can do any kind of animal that you like. To a mouse, you can make a wee mouse. I've got a bit of wool for the tail. I cut 2 circles out for the ears and sewed them on. I used a bit of pink wool for the ears, my googly eye and the nose, and the pin on the back. And now I can have to a mouse, or I can just have a Scotty dog. I hope you have fun working with needle and thread. Do be careful. Don't poke a hole in yourself. Pins are sharp and the needle is sharp. They have to be to work. And we need to practice with our sewing, because if a button comes off, what are you going to do? You can't glue it on. So thank you for watching with me, and have fun making your brooches. You can make them for gifts. You can make them to sell at school for charity funds, or you can just make them for fun. You can create a whole zoo for yourself. If you can find a picture you like, cut it out of the felt, 2 panels, sew around the edges mostly, stuff it, the eyes, the pins, and the detail go on. I would love to see anything you make. If you wouldn't mind posting your pictures in the comments below, I would be very grateful. Thanks for watching, and see you again. Bye bye now.